cycling through all of the stages of grief. Sorry for the long post. I am still raw. I, 27 female, have been with my husband, 30 male, for almost 10 years, and married for almost 2. We have been bickering more, but things have honestly been stressful for both of us. He hates his job, or so I thought, and I am in the second year of a PhD program. We downloaded the lasting app since he refused marriage counseling due to money and his belief that we could work things out on our own. In hindsight, big red flags, and honestly thought we were doing better. Our bickering got better. We were communicating without making assumptions about the other person's thoughts, emotions. We were actively working on the little things, you know. On Sunday, I got up shortly after him and he asked me to feed the dogs while literally snapping at me. I turned to him and asked if he could not snap at me because I found it rude, and he looked at me and snapped again. I looked at him like, WTF? Why would you do that immediately after I asked you not to? His response was, because it shouldn't bother you. This just turned into an argument where he eventually said he was done trying and that that's just who he is. Several hours later and we are still heated, and I'm just trying to figure out what he means about not trying. He eventually says that we are just incompatible, and that I want kids and he doesn't. This was news to me because while we are not ready for kids now, we frequently talked about his desire to be at SHD once I finish my program. I asked when this changed and he replied a year ago. Things got a little bit less heated as we both decided that we were tired and not able to have a real conversation. Yesterday he went to work, and when he came home, I asked if we could talk about what happened, and he sighed, sat down next to me, and told me that he fell in love with one of his also married coworkers. I asked how it happened and he said that they had been talking on the side for several months, though he assured me nothing ever got physical. I asked why he couldn't tell me about this at all when we were trying to work on our marriage, and he said because he is a coward and wasn't sure if he wanted to work on us. I asked if he still loved me and he said yes. I asked if he wanted to work on things and he said, I don't know, but if you're going to make me choose now, the answer is no. I was completely blindsided. Nothing seemed real. But I told him that I'm not just going to sit here and hope that he'll choose me. He told me I can keep both dogs. I cried, called my parents, cried some more, and texted friends that we were planning a board game night with. I spent the night at a friend's house drinking wine, crying, getting angry, laughing, all of it. Once they fell asleep, I stayed awake watching Netflix and occasionally calling my parents and niece. I haven't slept since yesterday. I'm tired, but the moment I close my eyes, the tears start again. I can barely eat because I'm so nauseous. Logically, I know I will be okay, and honestly, there was so much about myself that I was sacrificing for this relationship. He never validated my emotions. There were a lot of little put-downs, a lot of gaslighting. I am by no means perfect, but I do take comfort in knowing that I tried hard. Now I just need to figure out how to do this while trying to finish my doctorate. Right now, I am thankful for my 2 dogs, the new girl a great pick-me-up, great friends, and guacamole. I'm sure I will sob at least 10 more times today, but I am trying my hardest to just lean into these emotions because they will pass. And part of me is so angry that he was so unemotional when I left last night, but I also feel kind of bad for him in a way. Because while this pain sucks, it just shows how much love I have to offer. And I look forward to finding someone else who is more deserving of that love. But for now, that love will be channeled into my family, friends, and dogs. Update: he emotionally cheated and then called me manipulative. And I am now realizing how much SHT I have put up with and made excuses for. My 27F husband, 30M, and I didn't have the perfect relationship, but I can truly say that I loved him and trusted him wholeheartedly. We have been married for almost 2 years and together for almost 10. After having a stupid fight on Sunday, he gave me the dreaded "there's someone else" on Monday evening. Proceeded to tell me that he has fallen in love with one of his also married co-workers and wants to try and make it work with her. Swore that it never got physical. Gee, thanks. And that it just happened. You know, because having extensive text conversations with your married coworker just happens. I begged and pleaded, admittedly harder than I should have, to try and make things work. Marriage counseling, giving time, you name it. I left for the night, and when I came back on Tuesday night, I asked if he was still sure. He said he was, then had the gall to admit that he dreaded coming home from work because he wasn't sure if I was going to try and manipulate him again into staying. Because apparently trying to not throw away a 10-year relationship and begging for counseling, a trial, separation, etc. before calling it quits is manipulative. He said I could keep both dogs because it would be cruel to separate them. So I left with them last night. While he was at work, I packed them up with some clothes and went to stay with a friend. Call it morbid curiosity, but last night I texted him one last time to see if his feelings had changed once he got home and was alone in the house. He said nope, and that I shouldn't hold out hope for reconciliation. Surprisingly, I haven't cried since then. I woke up feeling strangely hopeful and excited about finding my own apartment. I'm sure a lot of it is just numbness rather than truly being over it, but honestly, being called manipulative for trying to make our marriage work and then realizing that he didn't have a change in heart after realizing he would never see our 2 dogs again, something just clicked inside me. In some ways, I'm thankful that he is being so cruel. Literally a week ago I thought things were okay. And I have gone from thinking I would die with this man to trying to find an apartment and accepting that I will have to live on my own for the first time in my life. I'm also calling the divorce lawyer today and a psychologist because I know I will have more breaks. Not sure what I'm hoping to get from posting this, but it feels good to rant. Thanks to whoever reads it. Update, not sure what hurts worse, losing my best friend partner of 10 years or realizing I never had him to begin with. First off, I want to thank everyone on this sub. The support I received from many of you has already given me a little bit of strength to move forward. As I spend my days crying on and off, I have come to the realization that many of the things I am crying over, losing emotional validation, someone to share my good days and bad days with, most of them I never had in the first place or had to beg him for. My STBX was terrible with emotions. I, on the other hand, have always worn my emotions on my sleeve. Good, bad, ugly. I cry out of sadness, happiness, and frustration. He would always shut down during an argument where I showed any hint of emotion. I begged him to try counseling to improve our communication, but he wouldn't because it cost money. I once cried during a movie where a dog died unexpectedly, and his first reaction was to laugh at me. He didn't even console me. Recently, I asked him about saving some time for our 10-year dating anniversary since it falls on a Saturday. He asked me to reschedule because he had a video game thing happening that week. He had no idea why this hurt me and we argued about it. I eventually agreed to postpone. All of these little things have been swimming in my head. All of the excuses I've made for him. And I'm realizing that he did not love me or treat me the way I so desperately wanted to be. The way I treated and loved him, and so I noticed that I'm not grieving him, but rather the person I hoped he would be someday. The person I saw through rose-colored lenses. And it really sucks to come to that realization. Update, woke up feeling hopeful. It's only been 16 days, but who is counting lol since D-Day, and I know I am nowhere near being healed completely. But I woke up this morning and am genuinely feeling hopeful for the first time. One of the things that makes me most excited is being able to decorate my new apartment exactly how I want. I have never lived alone and I'm honestly kinda terrified, but the thought of getting new furniture and decor and creating my own little space is honestly making me very happy. I know I am also not ready to date anytime soon, but I think about it on occasion and how I can actually get something I deserve. I have reflected on my relationship a lot over the last few weeks and I've come to realize that what we had wasn't as great as I thought. There was so much I put up with because being with him felt safer than being alone. The fact that I can hopefully find someone who genuinely likes spending time with me, is open to trying new things, and most importantly is able to communicate with me when things aren't great, is giving me hope that I can someday be happier than I ever was in this relationship. Friends, it still sucks. But if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have never thought I could wake up one morning and get things done without crying. It also helps when you have a dog who licks your eyes every time you cry. Stay strong, friends. You'll feel like dying for a while, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Any minor step you take, even if it's just getting out of bed that day, will put you closer. Update: how do you cope with realizing your STBX is doing things for their AP that they never did for you? Going through some emotions and figured it was better to ask here than it is to text my ex. I've been going to what was our house during the week when he is at work to pack my stuff. When I first went there last Saturday, I was completely awestruck at how clean everything was. I always felt like I had to beg to get him to help me clean, and when he did, he would half-ass it. When I saw how spotless the house was, I remember getting angry and thinking, why did he never do this for me? I went there today and some of her stuff is there. Sad, but not surprised. But I also noticed that he's been buying her things. Packages are there under her name and there is an $80 cologne sitting on the counter. I don't think he has ever worn cologne for me. Hell, sometimes I had to encourage him to engage in basic hygiene. I still have access to our joint account for now as we are splitting our savings, but I noticed that in the past week, he has spent $800. This is the same guy that got mad at me once for wanting to buy a $15 box of soft pretzels because they're expensive, and we don't need them. We were both working full-time in a low-call area, kept our house at 80 degrees despite me being miserable to the point of not sleeping. He finally agreed to turn it down 2 more degrees once his computer stopped working in the heat. Refused marriage counseling because we are fine, and because it costs money. I'm feeling a mixture of anger and devastation at this person I don't even recognize. During one of our last conversations, he said that he was just settling with me and that he knew we would never work because we were incompatible. In these weeks of reflection, I admit that I was not happy in this relationship a lot of the time. And a huge part of that was because I felt like he never tried to change. We would argue over the same things and he would give empty apologies but stayed the same. So it sucks to see him put this effort with someone new. Logic tells me that it won't last. That it's a fair fog and that he is going to go back to the same grumpy, chronically sarcastic person at some point. The person who doesn't respect boundaries and laughs when you cry, but there's still this part of me that wonders, what if it was me? And that I was just that terrible to be with and that this new person is his real self? He said he felt like he couldn't be himself around me, but I took that to mean that he didn't like how I didn't appreciate his constant put-downs, what he called jokes. And right now, this part of me is keeping me up at night and I don't know how to shut it up. I tell myself that even if it were true, it doesn't justify what he did. And that he still refused marriage counseling, so he was clearly not interested in changing for me. And that no one is perfect, but at least I was trying. But in the end, I keep going back to those same thoughts and it's hard not to feel broken. Update: it's his birthday tomorrow. I love spoiling him on his birthday, even though he rarely put the same effort into mine. So since he and his EAP are together now, I'm going to take the opportunity to spoil myself in the ways I always wished he'd spoil me. After work, I'm going to buy myself some cupcakes that I like, have a glass of wine, and watch a movie with my formerly our 2 dogs and try not to think about him. Hell, maybe I'll even splurge on some flowers. How did you all spend your first set of birthdays after separation? Update: a letter to my STBXH on our anniversary. Duck you cheating FCK. P.S. Thanks for being so caught up in the affair that you didn't fight me about taking our 2 dogs. Here I was, worried that at 8 and 9 years old, they'd struggle being away from the other human who helped raise them since they were puppies. As it turns out, they don't give a S-it. They're the happiest they've ever been, especially now that they don't have to share the bed. We are all better off. Update: SDBXH has officially been upgraded to XH. Judge signed off on the paperwork yesterday, which was exactly 3 months since D-Day. No court appearance was required. Time to celebrate. Update. 4-month update. Happiness is possible. It has officially been 4 months and 1 day since D-Day. And I am feeling okay. I haven't had one of those ugly cries in over 2 months, and most days I don't even think about my XH. Grief definitely comes in waves and is sometimes random. Nights are usually the hardest since I slept next to someone for 10 years, but they're getting easier. I'm thankful to have 2 incredibly handsome boys to share my bed with every night. My 2 dogs, who have been my biggest supports. I can truthfully say that I am happy most days. What has really helped me is staying social. I am prone to get depressed, and knowing that depression feeds off isolation, and with me living by myself, I created an internal rule where I have to accept every social invite unless I have a damn good reason not to. There have been several times where I wasn't in the mood to socialize, but I went out anyways and had an incredible time. Which tells me that my reasoning for not wanting to go out in the first place was so I could wallow in self-pity. Once my divorce was finalized, my friends threw me a kick-ass divorce party, complete with cake and all. They did everything they could to help me see that divorcing a cheating scumbag is a good thing worthy of celebration. It really helped. I'm still NC with XH. He sent me an email a couple of weeks ago asking for me to tell him when the divorce is final. I laughed to myself and deleted the email. To all of the betrayed, it does get easier. Even if you spend 10 years in a codependent relationship like I did. But please make sure you're doing what you can to heal. Be social. Get therapy. Adopt a pet. Block your worthless, cheating ex and their AP on everything so you don't pain shop. And remember that even if you made mistakes, it does not justify cheating. They always have the option to leave. I'm hoping everyone is doing well on their healing journey. And remember that you don't have to do it alone. There are so many people out there that know exactly what you're going through, including everyone on this sub who can be your support. Last update, instead of crying for him, I cried for myself. Last night was just one of those nights. You all know what I'm talking about. There was no specific trigger, nothing bad about my day. In fact, it was a pretty great day. I got a lot accomplished. But, as the day would have it, I still felt sorrow. So I sat on the couch with my 2 dogs, glass of wine in hand, and had a good cry. As I was crying, I came to a realization. My sorrow did not come from missing my XH. In fact, I was glad he wasn't there to see me cry. Instead, I was crying because I felt bad for myself and how I was treated. I felt bad that I spent so much time with someone who didn't respect me, someone who would often ignore me, invalidate me, or mock me whenever I was upset. I felt bad for myself because he betrayed me in the worst way possible and had the gall to call me manipulative as I sobbed on our couch and begged him to stay with me. This was a big turning point for me. In the past months, I would find subtle ways to blame myself for how he treated me. I would think that if I was always kind, if I never turned him down for SX, if I was the perfect wife, then maybe he would have been better. Maybe he wouldn't have cheated. That, I am not perfect, I never will be. I have my vices, but I recognize them and work on them. And when I was crying, I was finally able to feel bad for myself despite these issues. I did not deserve what happened. None of us do. He could have left instead of monkey branching to a new relationship with his coworker. He could have agreed to couples counseling, which I had been asking for years. It feels really cathartic to not hold myself to unrealistic standards anymore. Crying for myself felt really good.